welcome back to Release the Craftin. Priscilla here with a tutorial for you guys today. After my recent post on Instagram, I asked if anybody was interested in getting a tutorial on how I make my little file folder inserts, and apparently there was an overwhelming response, and you guys all really wanted to see how these are made. And I will say this is kind of a tricky tutorial for me because surprisingly I don't have like a formula or a set standard of measurements. I usually just kind of eyeball these as I go. Those of you who were with me on the live when I did the file folder challenge will know that I really was just kind of guessing when I started making these, and I've been guessing ever since. There are a couple of things that I do know going into this, and it's usually just the size of the folder, which is about 9.5 inches by about 11 5/8, 11.5 inches. And then when you open it, it's about 17 inches across. And that's kind of all I know going into this when I make these. And I just kind of guesstimate how big I want things to be or things like that. So this is a tricky tutorial. I don't have exact measurements for you, and every time I make these, they kind of come out in a different style. So I think I'll give you one version, and then you'll be able to see how easy it is to kind of come up with your own, and you'll be able to customize and change it up as you will once you see the process of how it's made. So for this, you will need a file folder. This is just a standard size manila file folder, and you'll need either a ruler and a stylus to make your own score marks, or a scoring board. I happen to have a scoring board, so I don't need to get the ruler and stylus out. You'll also need something to cut with, so scissors or a cutting board, or I know it's not called a cutting board. I don't know what it's called though. So we'll just move right past that. And in some instances you'll need both. So you'll need either scissors or a cutting tool of some kind, maybe like a rotary slicer, whatever you got on hand that cuts through file folder level cardstock will work just fine. And that's all you're going to need. I will show you guys how to build this today, and then either in a live or just a future craft with me, we'll go through and decorate one of these, so you guys can just kind of hang with me for that. It might be a live though. I haven't done a live video in a little while, so I'm kind of thinking that'll be best in that setting. But let's just get into it. So what I like to do is I don't have a preference for like which tab type file folder. I just grab whatever out of my box. I got a big box of like 100 off of Amazon for pretty cheap. But what I like to do is get rid of these little tabs just so that I have like a straight line to work with. So what I'm going to do is stick this in my cutting tool. Like, I'll remember the name of these later, like at midnight, and I'll be so mad that I couldn't remember the name. And I just line it up to the very edge of this so that I have a straight edge to work with. And that makes it a lot easier to score and do all your measurements and stuff like that. So if you have scissors and a ruler, you can just make a line and trim that off. You don't actually need a cutting tool to make it happen. And then my standard for these is usually to have them about 8 inches high. I figure that's a good size to work with. And like I said, they're about 11 5/8. So at 8 inches, that gives you about 3 5/8 of a pocket to work with. And it just kind of depends on what you want to do with your little flip out, insert, booklet, dude, whatever. Make sure, because you're scoring through 2 layers of file folder, that you give it a really good score so that it gets through both sides. You don't really have to be worried about tearing it unless you're scoring with like a pen, then maybe be concerned. But so if you were going to make like pockets that had extra stuff in them, like maybe flip outs or things like that, you would want to give yourself a little gusset so that you had space to fill it. So you could just come over here and score it probably at 1/4 of an inch. That would give you a good amount, so you could stuff these pockets full or add extra things to them, and you'd still have about 3 inches of pocket there, which is a really good size of pocket. And then what we're going to do is crack this open. So this will be the bottom, and then this will be the top part. And And I usually make them about 4 inches, like a block, which in a perfect world would be like perfectly scored and set, because like I said, it's about 17 inches. So you have about an inch, but then you have to remember that this little tab is going to be there. So most of mine have the little tab kind of like showing out off the side. So if you want the tab to be visible over the edge, you're going to have to allow for that when you're scoring. And you might want to make your little panels a little bit smaller. But for this one, I think I'm going to make the tab a little more flush with the book. Just like I said, because I change this every time I make it, and I don't have like a standard set of measurements for these. I just kind of go in and start scoring. So the first score mark we'll make, it'll be at like an inch, because I know that that extra inch is there, and like I said, I want it to be flush when I fold it all together. So I'll be able to fold this over and make it into like a little side tuck spot, and I'll be able to do the same on this little bottom pocket, or you can just cut this off and make it like a little tab or whatever you want to do with it. And then I'm going to score it at 5 inches, so that'll be a 4-inch side. And then I'm going to give myself 1/8 of an inch as a gusset here, and you want to make sure that you include these gussets, because as you fold everything together, it might come together really nice, you know, once you haven't like undecorated, it'll fold together real nice. But once you start loading stuff in there, like paper and journals and whatever you put into their little pockets and tags and stuff, it's gonna start to like bow out and not sit flat and sit nicely. So make sure you add these gussets. And also something important to note is that you're gonna make your gussets in order of like descending versus ascending. So like this is going to be the very inside of my book. So I know that this is going to be folded in. It's going to be a little pocket, and then this will be on the inside. So the gusset doesn't actually need to be that big, because it's going to be the smallest part of the book. But as we go up, the gussets are going to have to get bigger to allow for that growth as you like unfold the book. So if this was going to be the front of your book, you'd want this to be your largest gusset. But right now this is going to be the inside, so this is going to be the smallest. And then we're going to come over another 4 inches, make another 4-inch panel. So that's going to be about 9 1/8. And then, like I said, we're going to make another gusset, and this one's going to be a little bit bigger. So it's going to be 1/4 of an inch, which will be 9 3/8. And then, because obviously we run out of retail space, we're going to have to flip this over. And, sorry, I had to make sure I was still in frame. And then work backwards from here. So, right now we are at 8 3/8. And we're going to have to come over here to make another 4-inch panel. So that'll be at 4 3/8. That we will score down. And then okay, so then like I said, this will be the front of the book. Sorry about the weird cut. I had to stop for a second. So we're going to have the biggest gusset here. So since we're at 4 3/8, we're just going to come straight to 4. And you can see we get a nice large gusset out of that, and that'll accommodate all the bulk that we add in when we decorate. And then all you have to do is burnish. Fancy words that I know. And then we'll be able to cut out the extra bits. So I like to start from the inside just because it's a little bit easier to manage. I'm just going to burnish that really well. I'm not going to do the bottom yet, and you'll see why when we go to cut the pockets out. And it does get a little trickier when you're trying to like burnish these gussets, especially when they're really tiny, like 1/8 of an inch. So if you just kind of like apply some pressure, it'll fold naturally where you scored. And And because of the natural, like, the fold that's already in here, I like to kind of work a little bit backwards and fold away from that, just so that I don't get caught on that little center fold of the file folder, which you won't even notice once you decorate everything. It'll be all covered up. So then, at this point, you pretty much just want to decide what you're going to do for the, for this bottom row of pockets. Now you can cut all these little gussets out and have, you know, little pockets here, little flip outs, whatever you want to make. You can leave them together and have them fold into the book, but you want to remember that this little gusset, when it meets this side, it's going to add bulk. So you might not want to make this pocket too bulky as you go. But for this one, I'm going to cut all of these little guys out on the score line when I find my scissors. So I'm just going to cut all these lines out all the way up into that very bottom of this gusset we made here. And then right here I'm going to make this a little side pocket. So I'm going to cut this at the little score line here, but I'm also going to cut this little piece out because I don't need that. And that'll just be like a weird extra floating piece if I don't cut it out. And cut them at this line. I don't really know if I'm in frame or not. So hopefully you guys will understand what I'm saying if I wasn't. And nobody judge, I can't cut a straight line, but I will polish it up before I go to decorate. The idea is just to get rid of this little extra bit. Okay, so now that we have these all cut out, it's going to be a lot easier to score these upwards and make those lines match. And, you know, all of these don't have to be like super expansive pockets. They could be really like simple, easy pockets. I should have cut this higher up. Oops. This is what I'm saying. I don't plan these things out, so I don't really think about this stuff. But now that I've cut it, I can see that this line needs to get cut out. So I'm actually going to score that, or cut that before I try to fold it. So I take back what I said. Cut all the way up to the second line. Okay, so now you can burnish it down, and that'll give you a nice little flap with some space to add bulkier things. And if you don't want it to be like a bulky flap and you just want it to be like a regular pocket, you can totally just glue it straight flat down, and then you'll have this little line, but when you decorate it, you really won't notice that. And so this together, it'll all flip up really nicely and make us a little booklet here. And there's all sorts of things you can do that. I will go over them more in detail when I do the decorate video. But you know, this could be like a little pocket, a little flip out. And then of course I like to add little journals to mine, so that's probably what I'll do right here, is tuck a journal in and then have these little flip outs. And then, you know, this can come around to the back side, because you end up with 8 panels to decorate at the end of the day. And that's it. That's how you make one of these. And, you know, like I said, depending on what you want to do, they can be customized and changed up. You don't have to have this tab here. You can cut that off. You can add it in. But hopefully this will give you a standard set of ideas on how you can decorate your own book and make one of these happen. You can leave this, like not do this little tab on the side, and that'll give you the little inch that you need to have it peeking out over the edge. Which if you folded it the other way, would give you that tab that I usually do. But like I said, for this one I want the tab to be like flush and with the inside. So that'll be it for this video, you guys. You can catch me next time in the next one. And we'll go over some of the stuff that you can do with these and do some decorating together, and it'll be fun. But that's it. Thanks so much for watching. Have a great one, and happy crafting. Bye!